Something about this whole Rihanna situation is not sitting right with me. The woman who fought her way out. The woman who owns her masters. The woman who built an empire without him is suddenly letting Jay-Z's money walk right through her front door. And it's happening weeks after bullets hit her house. Weeks. You're reading this like it's a business headline, but this is a horror movie disguised as a partnership. And Hov? Bro really thought nobody would connect the timing on this one? Before we get deep into this, if your brain is already spinning, tap that like button and lock in with a subscribe. My comment section detectives, you'll know the drill. This is the kind of story the blogs will never tell you straight. Rubbin' Rihanna Fenty, Riri herself, is reportedly at the center of a deal where MarcyPen Capital Partners, Sean Carter's investment firm, is now the front runner to buy LVMH's 50% stake in Fenty Beauty. The reports hit the trades in March 2026, first surfaced through Beauty Independent, then picked up by Yahoo Finance and Global Cosmetics News. Hov really thought this would land as a feel-good black excellence headline. Nah, the receipt's about to say something completely different. Now let's be precise about what we're actually looking at, because the precision is where the story hides. This is not a rumor account on Instagram. This is not a blind item. This is a reported, multi-outlet, on-the-record trade press story about a 9-figure transaction involving the single most valuable celebrity beauty brand on the planet. Fenty Beauty didn't just disrupt the cosmetics industry when it launched in 2017. It rewrote the entire economics of celebrity brands. 40 foundation shades at launch. $100 million in revenue in its first weeks, by LVMH's own acknowledgement at the time. Forbes declared Rihanna a billionaire in 2021, and the engine of that billion was her ownership stake in Fenty. So when somebody starts moving on half of that company, we're not talking about gossip. We're talking about one of the largest transfers of cultural capital in modern entertainment history. And the man circling it isn't just any investor. He's the executive who signed her when she was a teenager. Sit with that for a second, because we're going to spend this entire video unpacking why that detail changes everything. Here's what makes this incident different from every other Jay-Z business headline you've scrolled past. Normally when Hov does a deal, it's loud. It's a press tour. It's a handshake photo. It's a Wall Street Journal profile about the billionaire mindset. That's his pattern. The man has never been shy about taking a victory lap. But this moved through the beauty trade press first. Beauty Independent. Global Cosmetics News. Outlets the average fan doesn't read. Outlets the culture doesn't monitor. That's not an accident. When a story is good for you, you put it on the front page. When a story is complicated for you, you put it in the trades and hope nobody translates it for the timeline. Somebody wanted this to be boring. Somebody wanted this to read like a Mojo announcement and not like what it actually is. The most powerful man of the old industry era buying his way into the most protected brand of the new one. And before anybody says it's just business, hold that thought. Keep it in your pocket. Because by the end of this video, I'm going to show you 3 separate moves that all happened inside the same 30-day window. And when you lay them side by side, just business is the last phrase that's going to come out of your mouth. The deal is the headline. But the headline is the distraction. Let's open the vault. Let's pull the actual quotes because context matters. I don't want you taking my word for anything tonight. I want you taking their words, the outlets, the court filings, the interviews, and I'm just going to line them up and let you see what I saw. In Beauty Independent's March 2026 report, the outlet stated plainly that MarcyPen Capital Partners has emerged as a leading contender to acquire LVMH's 50% stake in Fenty Beauty. Not one of the bidders. The leading one. When I read that word leading, I had to sit down. Because leading means the paperwork is deeper than everybody's pretending. Leading means there have been calls. Leading means lawyers have billed hours. Leading means bankers have run valuations. You do not become the leading contender for half of a $2 billion company over a weekend brunch. That phrase is a receipt that a process has been running quietly, possibly for months, before any of us heard a whisper. And that right there should be your first red flag. Not that the deal exists, but that it existed long before the culture found out. Then Global Cosmetics News on the same wave confirmed, and I quote, Jay-Z-backed MarcyPen Capital Partners is reportedly leading efforts to acquire LVMH's 50% stake in Rihanna's Fenty Beauty. Bro, When TWO trade publications say leading in the same week, that's not a rumor. That's a signal. Two outlets, two separate editorial teams, same verb. In media, that kind of alignment doesn't happen by luck. It happens when both outlets are drinking from the same well. Somebody close to this deal wanted that word out there. Somebody wanted leading on the record. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself who benefits from the market believing this acquisition is already a foregone conclusion. Because if you're LVMH and you're selling, a leading contender headline pressures every other bidder to pay more or walk away. And if you're MarcyPen, that headline makes the deal feel inevitable before Rihanna herself has said a single public word. And Hov's team really thought dropping this quietly into the beauty press would keep the culture asleep? That's the dumbest strategic assumption I've heard all year. Now flip the page to Complex, because the second receipt comes from a completely different industry, gospel. In their write-up on the Marvin Sapp partnership, Complex reported that Bishop Marvin Sapp is partnering with Roc Nation to distribute his upcoming gospel album Restoration, his 17th project and 9th live recording. Read that again. 17th album. This man has done 16 without Hov. 16. Marvin Sapp survived the CD era, the download era, the streaming era, the collapse of gospel retail, the rise of gospel YouTube, all without needing a single Roc Nation cosign. He built one of the most durable catalogs in modern gospel music with his own machinery. When I heard that, I was like, wait, why now? Why does a man with 30 years of independent success suddenly need Sean Carter's distribution pipes in the exact same month Sean Carter needs cultural cover? That's not a partnership timeline. That's a rescue timeline. And I need you to remember this receipt, because when we get to the forbidden take, this bishop is going to matter more than you think. Billboard added more receipts, calling it Roc Nation storms gospel world with new Marvin Sapp partnership. That word storms. Nobody storms into a genre they respect. You storm into a market you want to convert. Storm is a military verb. Storm is what you do to a beach, a building, a city you're trying to take. Billboard's own headline writer, probably without even realizing it, told us exactly how Roc Nation sees the gospel audience, as territory, not as a community, not as a congregation, territory. And Bishop Sapp signing off on this. That's the move of a man who either doesn't see the optics or doesn't care about them. A bishop's entire currency is trust. You spend 30 years building it in the pulpit, and you can burn it in 30 days with the wrong signature on the wrong contract. Keep that in mind. The Guardian dropped a Jay-Z GQ cover interview in March 2026, where he addressed the 2024 sexual assault lawsuit head-on. His words, "I can't do it, I would rather die." That's a strong denial, and legally the civil case was voluntarily dismissed per ABC News in early 2025. Nobody's convicted of anything. Let me say that clearly so nobody clips me out of context. The case was dismissed, the man denies it, and in this country you are innocent until proven guilty. Period. But I am allowed to talk about timing. And when a man is publicly using the phrase rather die in a GQ cover the same season his fam is circling his ex-artist's billion-dollar company. Brew. The timing writes itself. A GQ cover is not a diary entry. It is a negotiated, strategized, publicist-approved media placement. You don't get a GQ cover by accident. You get it because your team picked up the phone and called for it. So the question isn't what he said on that cover. The question is why his team decided March 2026 was the moment he needed to say it. That's not a coincidence. That's a schedule. And then Page 6 confirmed the shooting piece. They're reporting Ortiz was arrested for attempted murder on Sunday after she allegedly fired 10 shots with an AR-15 style rifle at the singer's California home. 10 shots. AR-15. At the home where a billionaire mother sleeps with her children. When I read the number 10, I stopped reading and just stared at the wall. 10. And I need you to understand something about this receipt. This is not background noise in this story. This is the emotional context Rihanna was living inside while the biggest business decision of her adult life was being negotiated around her. A woman who reportedly just survived an armed attack on her home is a woman whose entire world is about safety, family, and trust. And that is the exact psychological state in which old loyalty gets weaponized. Riri, it's me. It's Hov. I've always protected you. When you're scared, the familiar face looks like shelter. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying every negotiator on planet Earth knows that's the moment you make your approach. Remember the timing. 10 shots. Same month. Now let's connect the dots because the sequence is the story. Any single one of these events, standing alone, is explainable. Deals happen. Albums get signed. Interviews get published. But stories don't live in events. Stories live in sequence. And this sequence is screaming. That shooting happened in early March 2026. The MarcyPen Fenty story also broke in March 2026. Same month. Same news cycle. And nobody in mainstream is putting them next to each other on the timeline. But I am. Because I have to. When a woman survives an alleged armed attack on her home and, within weeks, her former mentor's investment firm is named the leading contender to buy half her company, those two facts share a calendar. And the calendar is the story. Vulnerability and acquisition arriving together. If you wrote that in a movie script, the studio would say it's too on the nose. Real life said, hold my drink. That GQ interview? Same month. Hov did a full reputation reset campaign, the exact same window his firm was moving on Fenty, and his label was signing a Bishop. 3 moves. 1 month. Let me break down what a reputation reset actually costs, because the culture never prices these things. A GQ cover with a sympathetic profile, months of negotiation, a friendly writer, controlled questions. A gospel distribution deal with a beloved bishop, that's not a phone call. That's courtship, meetings, dinners, lawyers, terms. A stake in Fenty Beauty. That's investment bankers, due diligence, LVMH's corporate machinery in Paris. Each of these moves individually takes a quarter of a year to arrange. All 3 landing in the same 30 days means somebody was building this for a long time and chose to detonate it all at once. That's not organic. That's a coordinated rollout, and it has damage control war room written all over it. Any smart advisor would have spaced these moves 90 days apart. Whoever's running Hov's PR right now is either overwhelmed or overruled. Or, and stay with me here, they didn't have the luxury of time. Something was forcing the schedule. Coordinated rollouts only get compressed like this when there's a clock ticking that we can't see. What clock? That's the question that should keep you up tonight. Remember the Def Jam origin? Rihanna signed with Def Jam in 2005 at 16 years old, per widely reported industry history, and the CBC paid in full documentary segment. Hov was the executive who signed her. A 16-year-old girl from Barbados, flown in, auditioning in an office, signing her life onto paper in front of grown men running a machine she didn't understand yet. That relationship, executive and teenage artist, is not a normal business relationship. It's closer to guardianship. The executive who signs you at 16 doesn't just own your contract. He owns your origin story. Every memory of her first studio session, her first radio interview, her first platinum plaque, his standing in the frame. That kind of bond does not dissolve when the paperwork ends. It lives in the body. And 20 years later, when that same executive comes knocking, not as your boss anymore, but as a partner, an investor, a friend of the family, the 16-year-old inside you still hears his voice first. Then, years later, she quietly negotiated ownership of her masters, one of the rarest exits in the modern industry. That door doesn't open for anyone. Taylor Swift went to war publicly over her masters and still had to re-record her entire catalog in the street like a protest. Rihanna got hers quietly. No lawsuit. No leaked emails. No public beef. And her walking through it without a public wall? That's the part that always felt off to me. Nobody escapes that machine clean unless the machine wanted the door unlocked. So either Rihanna is the single greatest negotiator in music history possible, or somebody let her have those masters, and a favor that size doesn't retire. It waits. It sits in a drawer for years, accruing interest, until the day somebody needs to call it in. Ask yourself, does March 2026 feel like a day somebody called in a favor? His firm? Named MarcyPen. Marcy, as in Marcy Projects, Brooklyn. His origin. The name is a signature. Men like Hub don't name their vehicles randomly. MarcyPen is a declaration. This is ME. This is MY hand. This is Brooklyn reaching into your cap table. When MarcyPen shows up on a cap table, that's Hub's fingerprint, no matter how many press releases call it arm's length. There is no arm's length when the company is literally named after your childhood address. That's not a fund. That's a flag being planted. And here's the part that made my head spin. The Rolling Stone Dame Dash reporting from 2022. Rockefeller Records sued Dame over the Reasonable Doubt NFT situation. Dame's own co-founder. His brother. The man who stood next to him when there was no money, no deal, no Rockefeller. Just two hustlers from New York betting everything on each other. Ended up in court over a stake in an album he helped build. Read that sentence again and let it do what it does. The co-founder of the company got sued by the company over the art the company exists because of. If that's how it ended with Dame, the man who was in the room at the very beginning, what happens to a woman who was never his co-founder, just his artist? Hov's own Rockefeller partner didn't walk out clean. Bro, that's who you're negotiating with, Riri? The history is not hidden. It's not sealed. It's published in Rolling Stone for anybody with eyes. The pattern of how partnerships end around this man is public record. And everybody in Rihanna's camp has read it. So the real mystery isn't whether the deal is dangerous. The real mystery is why anybody around her is letting it get this close. Now check this out. Nobody's dissecting the specific word choices in these deal announcements. And in high-stakes business, words are not decoration. Words are architecture. Every single adjective in a deal announcement was fought over by lawyers before you ever read it. So let's read like lawyers. Look at the word distribution in the Sapp Roc Nation deal. Per Gospel Music Association's own release, this isn't a signing, it's a distribution partnership. That's a huge distinction, and I need you to understand it because the whole trap hides inside it. A traditional record deal means the label owns or co-owns your masters, funds your recording, and controls your career decisions. Distribution means the music goes through Hov's pipes but Sapp keeps his masters, allegedly. It's a lighter footprint. Sounds generous, right? Sounds like Roc Nation is being respectful of the Bishop's independence? Flip it. Distribution means Roc Nation carries almost zero risk. No advance to recoup. No masters to defend in court. No long-term obligation to an artist whose audience skews older. They get the press release, Roc Nation storms gospel world. They get the cultural association with one of the most trusted men in the black church, and if the album flops, they lose nothing but bandwidth. Which means Roc Nation gets Bishop's name and cultural cover without taking the master risk. That's a one-way benefit deal disguised as a two-way partnership. Roc Nation bought a halo at a wholesale price. And Bishop really didn't peep that structure before signing? That's embarrassing for a man his age in this game. 17 albums. And somebody still managed to sell you the version of the deal that protects them. Now zoom into the Fenty language, because this is the most important forensic detail in the entire story, and I have not seen ONE entertainment show catch it. MarcyPen isn't reported to be buying Rihanna's stake. It's reportedly buying LVMH's 50%. That specific piece of the pie. Which means, read carefully, Rihanna technically doesn't have to sign anything. LVMH is the seller. She just has to not block it. Do you understand how diabolical that structure is? If MarcyPen was buying Rihanna's stake, she'd have to sit at the table, sign the papers, pose for the handshake, own the decision publicly. She could be blamed. She could be questioned. But buying LVMH's side? The deal happens around her. The contracts get signed in Paris and New York. Her name never touches a signature line. Silence is consent in a deal like this. And Riri hasn't publicly said one word about MarcyPen. Not a tweet. Not a story. Not a no comment through her rep silence. That silence is loud. Now, is that silence consent? Or is that silence a woman who was told this is happening with or without you, and your only choice is whether to fight it in public? Because LVMH selling its stake is a corporate decision between LVMH and the buyer. Rihanna's leverage in that room depends entirely on what's written in her original 2017 joint venture paperwork, and none of us have seen that paperwork. There could be a right of first refusal clause sitting in a drawer at LVMH headquarters that changes this entire story. There could be nothing. We don't know. What we do know is that the structure of this deal was specifically engineered so that the most famous woman in the transaction never has to open her mouth. Who engineered that? And who does that engineering protect? Huh? Or him? And check the complex phrasing again on Sapp, his 17th project and 9th live recording. Ninth, live recording. Gospel live recordings are the highest emotion, highest revenue product in gospel. Ask anybody in that industry. The live album is where gospel artists make their legends. Never Would Have Made It was a live moment. The crowds, the praise breaks, the spirit moving in the room. You cannot manufacture that in a studio, and you cannot replicate its commercial power. Roc Nation, grabbing a live album isn't a beginner move. That's snatching the crown jewel. Sapp gave his most valuable format on his first deal. Bishop, respectfully, that's giving front row access on day one. In negotiation, you never lead with your best asset. You lead with something you can afford to lose. Unless the deal wasn't really about the album at all. Unless the album was the ticket price for something else, access, protection, association. And when a bishop starts trading in protection instead of praise, the congregation eventually feels it in the pews. Then the shooting. The page 6 detail about an AR-15 style rifle fired at an occupied dwelling. That specific weapon choice. That specific target. That specific timing. If the police are treating it as attempted murder with $10 million plus bail, they see it as targeted, not random. Bail schedules don't lie. Judges set numbers like that when they believe the defendant is dangerous and the act was deliberate. Ivana Ortiz pleaded not guilty per The Guardian's March 25, 2026 court coverage. So the case is still open. Motive still unclear. And I want to be responsible here. The defendant is entitled to her presumption of innocence. And we do not know why this happened. But the courts are handling it like a serious operation, not a fluke. Now layer the business timeline on top of the criminal one. An active attempted murder case means active investigation, detectives, interviews, subpoenas, reporters circling. Every camera in entertainment is already pointed at Rihanna's life, her home, her security, her circle. And into that environment, Hov's people chose to move on Fenty. Either they didn't see the optics, impossible, these people are professionals, or the deal couldn't wait. And Hov's people missing how bad the optics of moving on Fenty during an active attempted murder case would look? That's political malpractice. Unless it wasn't missing anything. Unless the chaos was the cover. Bad news months are when smart operators sign their best papers, because nobody's reading the business pages while there's a crime story on the front page. I'm just asking the question. You decide which version sounds like the Sean Carter you've watched for 30 years. Now look at how different outlets framed all this, because the framing is a receipt too. When 5 outlets tell 5 different versions of the same man, the differences aren't sloppy journalism. The differences are the strategy. Beauty Independent framed it as pure business, leading contender, clean, professional, dollar value focused. No cultural context. No mention of the shooting. No mention of Hov's ongoing legal cloud. Just a beauty industry M&A story. That's the trade press doing what trades do, staying in their lane. But understand WHY, the trade press gets the story first. Trade journalists depend on access to executives, to deal makers, to PR offices. The outlet that plays nice gets the next scoop. The outlet that asks, hey, isn't this happening during an attempted murder case and a reputation crisis, gets frozen out of the next deal announcement. So the cleanliness of that coverage isn't objectivity. It's the price of admission. Global Cosmetics News took the same angle. Yahoo Finance repackaged it as a market story. All 3 treated this like a Kraft-Heinz merger. Zero cultural analysis. 3 outlets, 1 sanitized frame. When coverage is that uniform, it usually means the source material, the press release, the leak, the background call, was uniform too. Somebody handed these outlets a very tidy story, and all 3 carried it exactly as handed. That's not reporting. That's distribution. And isn't it interesting? The same week Roc Nation signs a distribution deal for gospel music, Jay-Z's Fenty move gets distribution through the trade press. Distribution is the theme of the month. Content flows through pipes, and the man who owns the pipes decides what the content smells like. But Complex framed the Sapp deal way differently. Their headline treated it as a Jay-Z power play into gospel, positioning Hov as the culture king expanding empire. Billboard used the word storms, an aggressive verb. Thegrio also picked it up with the first gospel release framing. So in the music press, Hov is a conqueror. Then compare that to how The Guardian framed Hov's GQ interview as damage control from a man addressing his 2024 lawsuit. In the news press, Hov is a defendant clearing his name. 3 different outlets, 3 different Hovs. The trade see a businessman. The music press sees an empire builder. The news press sees a man defending himself. That fragmentation is not accidental. That's a PR machine feeding different stories to different rooms. And here's why that should unsettle you. A man with a clean conscience needs one story. A man managing a crisis needs 5. Every audience gets the version of Hov they are most likely to accept. The beauty executives get a tidy M&A headline. The hip-hop audience gets a king conquering new territory. The prestige magazine reader gets a thoughtful billionaire reflecting on adversity. It's the same man, sliced into marketable segments. When you see that level of narrative discipline, you're not looking at a news cycle. You're looking at a campaign. And campaigns have objectives. The objective here was obviously March 2026. Come out of this month looking like a statesman, a mogul, and a victim of false accusation all at once. Never a predator, never desperate, never scared. Now ask the only question that matters. What was the campaign designed to make possible? Because you don't spend that kind of reputation capital unless there's a transaction at the end of it. And we already know what the transaction was. It's got Rihanna's name on the building. Now the counter-narrative. Hov's defenders online are saying, it's just business, it's a fund, he's not personally in Fenty. Some are saying, Rihanna's a grown woman, respect her choices. I hear that. And technically, they're right. Funds are structured vehicles, and Rihanna is one of the sharpest self-made businesswomen alive. But those are the same people who thought Dame Dash was gonna keep his reasonable doubt stake. Those are the same people who thought Beyoncé wouldn't need discount codes on the Cowboy Carter tour. Hollywood Reporter literally published the promo codes THR 150 and THR 300 for those very tickets. Facts don't lie. The just business defense has a losing record around this family. Every time the culture said it's just business, the paperwork later revealed it was personal, structural, and permanent. And the fans defending this move without reading the paperwork? You're playing yourselves. You've confused loving the music with trusting the machinery. The music is beautiful. The machinery has a body count of broken partnerships, estranged brothers, and courtroom endings. You can bump the blueprint and still read the fine print. Both things can be true. In fact, around this man, both things are always true. Nah, this doesn't even feel like a business deal anymore. This feels like a hostage negotiation dressed up in beauty industry jargon. And I know how that sounds. I know the blogs are gonna clip that sentence and call me crazy. But before you judge the metaphor, walk through the logic with me. Because I didn't arrive here emotionally. I arrived here forensically. Here's what nobody on the entertainment shows is willing to say out loud. The industry is running a rehabilitation laundering operation. And Rihanna is the detergent. Think about it structurally. When a powerful figure's brand gets contaminated, legally, culturally, socially, the traditional playbook was silence and time. Wait it out. Go quiet. Let the news cycle bury you. That playbook worked for 50 years. But we're in a new era. The Diddy fallout closed that door. Silence looks like guilt now. Every powerful man who went quiet in the last 3 years got convicted in the court of the timeline. The internet learned that silence is a strategy, and once a strategy is exposed, it stops working. So the new playbook is acquisition. You don't wait for the culture to forgive you. You buy proximity to figures the culture already loves. You attach your name to their halo, and every future accusation lands softer because look who works with him. This is not a theory I invented. It's reputation economics. Corporations do it when they sponsor Olympics after scandals. Politicians do it when they hug babies after indictments. And moguls do it by buying into brands that radiate innocence. There is no purer brand in entertainment right now than a self-made billionaire mother from Barbados who built a beauty empire on inclusivity. Her halo is the strongest detergent money can buy. That's what MarcyPen circling Fenty really is. Riri is the most commercially bulletproof black woman in entertainment. Bishop Sapp is one of the most trusted voices in gospel. Both moves in the same 30-day window. Look at the pattern of selection. He didn't buy into a tech startup. He didn't buy into a liquor brand. He already owns those. He went for a beloved woman's beauty company and a beloved bishop's gospel ministry. A woman in a church. The two most morally protective associations in black culture. That is not empire building. Empire builders diversify into growth markets. This man diversified into moral cover. That is reputation laundering at industrial scale. And Hov's team really thinks the culture is stupid enough not to see the pattern? Brew, we been watching. We been counting. And here's the psychological warfare piece. Every time Hov's name gets tangled in something ugly, a woman from his past resurfaces in a business context. Foxy Brown. Free. Now potentially Rihanna. Look at the rhythm of it. Controversy, then a reunion. Scrutiny, then a collaboration. Questions, then a woman from the vault standing next to him in a business headline, implicitly vouching with her presence. Is that management? Is that mentorship? Or is that a man making sure the people who know things stay inside the tent, financially incentivized to stay quiet? I don't have that answer. Let me be clear. I am not accusing anyone of anything illegal. I am pattern matching, in public, with public information, and I am telling you what the pattern looks like from where I'm standing. Any smart person would notice that pattern by move number 3. Hov's playing checkers, thinking we can't see the board. Bro, we see the board. We been seeing the board. The only thing we couldn't figure out was the endgame, and then March 2026 happened, and the endgame showed up in the beauty trade press wearing a suit. Now here's the historical pattern that should stop everybody's scroll. In 2016, Prince died. Almost immediately, his catalog became the most valuable unprotected asset in music. And Roc Nation, through Tidal, ended up right in the middle of the streaming battle over his estate. Prince spent his life warning artists, don't sign, own your masters, own your name. He literally wrote slave on his face. He changed his name to a symbol to escape a contract. He was the industry's loudest prophet about ownership, and the moment his catalog became untouchable value, he was gone. And within months, the same industry machinery he spent his life warning about was fighting over the rights to his life's work in court. I am not saying anybody did anything to Prince. Nobody's saying that. His passing was investigated, and I have zero evidence suggesting anything beyond what the official record says. I'm saying the pattern of powerful figures ending up near valuable catalogs at strange moments is a pattern the industry has never wanted to examine. Because examining it would require admitting that in this business, ownership makes you a target, and the bigger your ownership, the bigger the target. Now run that math forward. Rihanna owns her masters. Rihanna owns 50% of a $2 billion beauty company per Forbes 2021 billionaire declaration. Rihanna is currently the most valuable unprotected asset in music. She owns everything Prince told artists to own. She is the fulfillment of his prophecy. And who just showed up at the door? Hov, playing his usual predictable game. The last time a catalog this valuable sat this unprotected, the vultures circled within weeks of the owner being unable to say no. Rihanna can say no. The question of this entire decade is whether anybody in her life is going to let her. The cultural angle nobody wants to touch. This is a generational transition happening in real time. The old guard of the industry, the 90s and 2000s power brokers, are watching their era die. Diddy is in a cell. R. Kelly is in a cell. The FBI's been sniffing around executives nobody wants to name. The architecture of the old industry, the handlers, the fixers, the NDAs, the quiet settlements, is being dragged into the light one courtroom at a time. And Hov is the last untouched king of that era. Think about what that means psychologically. Every man he came up with is either fallen, finished, or flipped. He is standing on an island, and the tide is coming in. His whole business survival now depends on grafting his name onto the next era's untouchables. Rihanna is next era. Sapp's church audience is next era. This is an old king trying to bribe the future not to bury him. And any smart king would have retired to Monaco with grace. The man has more money than his grandchildren can spend. But Hov can't stop reaching. Because retirement requires peace, and peace requires the past to stay buried. And the past does not stay buried in 2026. The past gets subpoenaed now. The past gets podcast. So he keeps moving, keeps acquiring, keeps attaching. Because desperation looks exactly like this. And to the people saying I'm reaching, Hov's own wife had to run tour discount codes through the Hollywood Reporter this year for the Cowboy Carter Tour. THEB, the most famous performer on earth. needing $150 and $300 off promo codes to move seats. I need you to really absorb that, because it breaks the mythology. For 20 years we were told this family prints money, that everything they touch sells out, that the brand is invincible. Then the Hollywood Reporter is publishing discount codes like it's a mattress sale. That is not the empire people pretend it is. That is a brand whose demand has softened, and when demand softens at the top of an empire, everybody underneath starts scrambling. Wenby needs discount codes. Hov needs a rebrand. And a rebrand looks like buying into Fenty. It looks like sponsoring a bishop. It looks like a GQ cover confessing his soul. 3 moves. 1 quarter. 1 drowning man reaching for 3 lifelines at the same time. And drowning men are the most dangerous men in the water, not because they are evil, but because they will pull down the person trying to save them without even meaning to. That's what drowning does. It converts rescue into shared drowning. Rihanna is the biggest lifeline. And if she reaches back, even out of loyalty, even out of nostalgia, even out of fear, she does not just save Hov. She stamps her name on every future headline about him. Every lawsuit, every rumor, every deposition, every document that gets unsealed in whatever case comes next. And in this era, something always comes next. It all lands on Fenty's doorstep. The brand she built for her son's generation, for her legacy, for her independence, becomes the collateral on his reputation. That's not partnership. That's radioactive contamination dressed up as a homecoming. And the cruelest part? She'd be doing it to herself with a smile, because loyalty is the one lock this industry has always known how to pick. And that's the truth the blogs won't tell you. Watch the next 90 days carefully because this situation is about to move fast. I'm going to give you 3 scenarios: the collapse, the revenge, and the culture shift. And I want you to screenshot this part of the video, because when one of these plays out, you're going to remember who told you first. Scenario 1, the collapse path. When this MarcyPen Fenty deal actually closes, Hov's name is going to be legally attached to every future Fenty press release, every product launch, every earnings whisper, every shareholder document. Right now, the association is a headline. After closing, it's a legal fact. And the first time, a new lawsuit, subpoena, or old associate flips on him, Fenty stock energy takes the hit. That's not a maybe. That's how brand contamination works. Ask the brands that were tied to Diddy. Ask the companies that were tied to Kanye at his most radioactive. Contamination doesn't need a conviction. It needs a headline, and the association does the rest. Hov's gonna be sitting there watching a billion-dollar beauty company's momentum slow down, and know here's the reason. That collapse is gonna be quiet. No press release. Just retailers pulling back. Just influencers going silent. Just end caps at Sephora getting smaller. Just the algorithm slowly deciding that Fenty content doesn't hit like it used to because the comment sections turn toxic. And Hov's gonna be powerless to stop it because you can't sue the culture for having taste. You can't subpoena a vibe shift. Watch the retail footprint. That's where the collapse will show first, not in headlines, in shelf space. Scenario 2, the revenge path. If Rihanna is signing this deal under any kind of pressure, real, imagined, or implied, the moment she feels stable enough, she will detonate. Riri doesn't do slow burns. She does silent nukes. This is the woman who disappeared from music for years and came back on her own terms. This is the woman who stared down the entire NFL industrial complex and performed the Super Bowl pregnant on her terms, without paying anyone an apology. The submission narrative doesn't fit her. It never has. Which means if she's in this deal reluctantly, she's in it strategically. Watch for Fenty ownership restructure sometime in the next 12 months where MarcyPen's stake gets diluted, restructured, or bought back. Watch for new investment vehicles appearing in her corporate filings. Watch for A$AP Rocky's team quietly building a family office that starts absorbing her assets away from the deal structure, because that move would be the tell. You don't build a family office unless you're walling something off from something. She's playing chess. Hov thinks he's the grandmaster because he always has been. But grandmasters lose the moment they assume the student is still a student. Riri watched Hov play everybody for 20 years. She sat in the front row of the masterclass. She learned the moves. She's about to run his own playbook back on him. And the beautiful irony? The same silence around this deal that protects him right now, no signature, no statement, no public attachment, works for her too. She never said yes in public, which means she never has to say no in public. She can just restructure. Quietly, legally, permanently. When that day comes, Hov is gonna look like the dumbest billionaire in the room. Scenario 3. The culture shift path. This is the biggest one, and it's already in motion. Bishop Sapp signing with Roc Nation is a fracture point in the black church community. Gospel Twitter is already going crazy. Older congregations are asking questions. The church is the one institution in black culture that still polices its own gatekeepers. You can fool the charts, you can fool the blogs, you cannot fool the mothers of the church. And the moment any major bishop publicly criticizes Sapp's decision, and it's coming, trust me, gospel is a jealous genre and there are 50 pulpits watching this deal with envy and suspicion. The whole gospel Roc Nation experiment collapses. The Restoration album drops fall 2026. That release window is a landmine. If any track has a controversial lyric, one interview goes sideways, one photo surfaces of Sapp in a room he shouldn't be in, the culture pulls the plug. Gospel audiences don't do separate the art from the artist. That's a secular luxury. In gospel, the messenger is the message. And Roc Nation loses its gospel foothold before it ever gets built. 5 years from now, this is gonna be the moment we all point to, as when Hov's empire hit its ceiling. Not a courtroom, not a scandal, but a miscalculation of faith. He thought the church was a market. The church is about to remind him it's a family. The scary part? It's happening quietly. Right now. While everybody's watching Fenty. Whatever happens, one thing's clear. Hov already lost the culture. He just doesn't know it yet. The deals will close. The press releases will sparkle. The GQ cover will sit on coffee tables. But the culture isn't a market you acquire. It's a jury that's always in session. And this jury has seen the Dame lawsuit, the discount codes, the 3 moves 1 month rollout, and the silence where a sister's voice should be. The verdict isn't coming. It's already in. The only people still pretending otherwise are the ones getting paid to. Real talk. I've been in this game long enough to know when a story is a headline and when a story is a warning. This is a warning. To Rihanna, to Bishop Sapp, to every artist watching this play out, read the paperwork. Read it twice. And remember, the most dangerous sentence in this business will always be "we're like family." If this video shifted something in your brain, drop that like. If you want to see part 2, because there is a part 2, and it's about what happens to artist catalogs after these deals close, hit subscribe. Comment section. I need 3 answers from you all. 1. Would you take Hov's money if you were Riri? 2. Does a bishop belong on Roc Nation? 3. Is the timing of all this coincidence or squeeze? Drop your honest takes. The smart ones always end up pinned. And by the way, next video, we're pulling back the curtain on something wild about an artist's estate that just quietly changed hands last month. You do not want to miss that one. Until then, protect your peace, protect your paperwork, and never sign anything with somebody who calls you family. Talk to you all soon.